Alright, we have come this far. Let me show you the reason why I needed to replace the head gasket. Before that, let's remove all these spark plugs. This is a 60mm socket, a deep socket, an extension. This is one. Remove all, in this case, all 5 of them. The reason for doing this is I want to do a leak down test for each cylinder, so to check if the pressure in each cylinder is enough. Let me show you. This is a leak down tester. I will install it in this case cylinder number 2. Cylinder number 2 is starting from the crankcase, or in this case the crankshaft. 1, cylinder 1, cylinder 2, etc. Always starting from the where the crankcase is. The cylinder 2 now is at top dead center. If I use a long screw, you can see it here. For example, cylinder 2 is very low now. Cylinder 2 is at top dead center. Connect the leak tester. Connect the air pressure. Push this clip here down, turn it until the air is starting to flow. I will start with 20 psi. You can see here the pressure in the cylinder is moderate by 20 psi. If I go up further, it's like between moderate and low. So this is the reason why I need to replace or remove the head, replace the head gasket, but also replace the valves. If you listen carefully, you can hear a hissing sound. I will spray some brake cleaner. You can see it's like cooking. So the intake valve is letting some air through. The pressure in the cylinder is moderate. Alright, the next step will be to remove this ground strap here from the engine to the chassis. It's a 10mm bolt, and then we will start to remove all the bolts of the exhaust pipe. It's difficult for me to put it on camera, but as you can see here, I will be using a mirror to check all the screws that I need to remove. In this case, all the screws are 30mm nuts and bolts. Alright, let's proceed. So remove the strap. Also remember where it was and place back the screw. Now to remove this valve cover, we need to remove this numerous amount of bolts here, and also it is necessary to remove the timing belt. For removal of the timing belt, we need to remove the engine mount here, so we can lower the engine a bit, so we can remove the tensioner of the timing belt. When the timing belt is removed, we will be able to remove the valve cover and the camshafts. Let's start with the removal of the engine mount. The engine mount is held in by two 17mm bolts, and its bracket is two 50mm bolts. I will put this coolant reservoir aside so I can have access to this bracket and the engine mount. Remember, when you remove this engine, you will need to place underneath the engine another jack so to hold this engine up. Here I have already installed the jack with a wood because the oil pan is made of aluminum not to damage it. I've jacked up the car, put it in a jack stand, and also removed the wheel. This is necessary so I can achieve this or reach this crankcase bolt. In order to remove this crankcase bolt or removal of this harmonic balancer, it is necessary to remove this 30mm bolt and this four 10mm bolts. I will be using a air pressure gun to speed up the process. For the removal of the harmonic balancer, it is necessary to remove this belt here, which drives the air compressor or the air conditioning compressor, AC compressor. In order to do that, we need to remove this tensioner of this belt. And that's the way you remove this belt. The harmonic balancer itself, you need to wiggle it and it slowly will come out. Okay. I will place back this nut so I can turn the engine. As you can see here, the alignment of the crankcase is now aligned with the engine, the indication of the engine. Now we will proceed with the removal of the two 15mm nuts or bolts, one here and the other over there, for the removal of this bracket. After removal of this bracket, we will be able to remove this engine mount, which is held in by two 17mm bolts. So remove this bolt, one and also the other one, two, and now it's possible to remove this bracket. Now we will be focusing on the removal of these two 70mm bolts of this engine mount. Remember, when you are removing these bolts, you need to sustain the engine with the other jack. With the jack, push the engine a little bit upstairs, so it will be able for you to remove this engine mount. There you have it. Now I will be lowering the engine so I can see, or at least remove the tension of the timing belt. As you can see here, now it's possible to remove this 12mm bolt. now the tension is from the timing belt, and I can slide it and remove it. Okay, I will now be placing this coolant reservoir back in order to continue working on this valve cover. Now I will be removing these gazillion bolts here for the removal of the valve cover. Alright, all the screws have been removed. In order to remove this, check for places where you can place the crowbar. Do not push any flat screwdriver or a crowbar in order to damage the surface, because otherwise you need to resurface. So look for places like this one or this place here where it doesn't touch the surface, so you can pry it like so, put it here and push the cover up so you can remove it. Again, do not place anything here so you can damage the surface. Be gentle when removing these shafts. Now these are the final steps in order to remove the head of the engine. The following steps are the following. This bracket here needs to be removed in order to push aside this pipe coming from the turbo. The next steps is to remove the different connectors here. One over here, push it aside, and the other one is this one. These connectors are for the oxygen sensors. Push aside any wiring, and also to drain the coolant. Like I said before, I cannot show you how to remove the exhaust pipe since it is back here, but I already showed you they are all 30mm bolts and nuts. Remove them in order to remove this head. Alright, let's proceed. These 1mm or one 10mm bolt and one 30mm bolt here has to be removed, and also these 3, 1, 2, 3 30mm bolts. So as you can see, you need to jack up the engine a little so you can reach to remove these 3 bolts here. So we can remove this bracket here and remove this pipe. Okay, alright, these are the brackets, the different bolts. One here, this is the second one, the third one. These 3 are 30mm, this one also. And now we can remove this bracket. This bracket is actually for the engine mount. So now it's possible to remove this pipe here, so it doesn't stand in the way when we remove the head of the engine.